Hey everybody, welcome, welcome. I'm Melissa McLeod and I'm so excited to introduce you to my friend Ann Thompson. How are you, Ann?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for joining me in the trophies today. So
Thank
y'all
you
know
for
that
having me.
my pleasure. So this month in February, we've been talking about focus and how we can stay focused. I know, just like you, we've all got a bazillion things going on in our lives. A lot of us here are wives, we're moms, we have jobs or careers or hobbies and obligations that take up a lot of our time. So we're always in high demand. And so for our guest speaker this month, I wanted to bring on Ann. She is a productivity specialist and also a friend of mine. Let me tell you how far back Ann and I go. Ann and my husband Patrick went to college together, you guys, back in the 90s.
I
And
was going to say, I don't know if you should say how long ago that was.
Ann's incredible. She went to the General Motors Institute. This is an engineering school in Flint, Michigan that was, what would you say, like 90% men?
Yeah, there was 9 girls in my class.
I love that. So man, it takes
I-
guts. So that says a lot about Ann right there. And she married a teacher, Tal. Was Tal already teaching or were you part of that?
We were both in college at the same time.
I love that.
He did
And
not go to GMI, obviously.
no. And so Tal has taken the family on his teaching career all over the country, much like my husband's taken us all over the country and now the world with the moves. And she has 2 little boys, Reese and Cole, and she and Tal now live in Virginia. And she has her own company, Operation Productivity, and she'll focus on small business, but she was able to do a coaching call with me to just focus on the home office. And so I wanted to introduce her to all of you. So Ann, why don't you add to your bio if you'd like, and then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of having a focused and productive household.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I love, like, besides talking about my kids, talking about organizing and productivity is like my favorite. So I could talk about this all day. So please stop me when you have any questions or if I just talk for too long, because this is only, for some people, this is not as interesting as it is for me.
I understand. You can talk. I won't interrupt you. And you can also talk about your kids if you want, because they're so adorable.
They are adorable. They're 5 and 12, and they're a lot of fun. And they're sleeping this morning for you and night for me. So
that's right. Thanks for being up so late for me.
No, it's fine. I love it. So yeah, with my business, I do still a lot of like traditional engineering operations consulting, but I wanted to help more like actual people as opposed to just businesses. And so I'm trying to work with more entrepreneurs and small businesses and just individuals, helping them feel less overwhelmed, less stressed with, like you said, all the crazy demands that we have on our time all the time. I feel it, so I'm drawn to helping people that are like me, like a busy mom or professional or a stay-at-home mom that's the CEO of her house, trying to run, get everybody where they need to go and just stay on top of all the things all the time. And I know that's a challenge. So organizing has always come. Always loved it. It's always been a really natural thing for me. When I was a kid, like younger than my oldest, maybe like 8 or 9 years old, my mom would be at work and she'd come home and I'd be like, Mom, guess what? I organized the pantry while you were gone, and good news, we don't need any more macaroni and cheese for like 6 months because I found 23 boxes. And I was so excited about it. It looked beautiful and I'd show her all the things and she's like, again, the organizing. And so through that, I did learn a valuable lesson. One, it's something that I love doing and I would do for free for anyone. So that's always kind of know what your passion is. If you were, some people say, what were you doing when you were 12, or what would you do even if nobody paid you for it? And this is definitely like my thing. But I also learned that it's not a one size fits all. You have to learn what somebody's style is, and you have to get like alongside them. And while I could come in and like set up a system for you or anyone that I think is going to work perfectly, like if I don't get your input and tweak the system to meet your style and your needs, it's not going to last. And that's what I want for everybody, is to be able to take some things that they learn and then not need me ever again. And you know, that even when things like start to get really busy and overwhelming again, you have a system that you can fall back on and you can recover quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I feel like a lot of people say, like, I tried to get organized, I tried this, I tried that, you know, and it worked, and then it just fell apart and I never got back to it. And I think that's because they didn't really kind of understand like the underlying like system that could be put into place, as opposed to just trying like little tips here and there. So that's what I want to try to share with you a little bit today. You know, because we're all in the same place. Like, we're just all trying to live our best lives and, you know, just be, you know, feel as at ease as possible,
Mm-hmm.
you know, along the way. So we're accomplishing all of our things. We like to say accomplish our work and enjoy our lives. So you can't really do one without the other and be happy. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today. I do want to mention some of the things like that term I just said, accomplish our work and enjoy our lives. I got certified a couple of years ago by a woman named Barbara Hemphill, which if you're like a super nerd and you know about the organizing industry, she was one of the founders of the entire organizing field. And so I became certified as a productive environment specialist. And so a lot of the foundational principles I learned from her. So I definitely want to give her credit, because she's amazing. I was on a call with her today, and it's like, in my world, that's like being like on the phone with LeBron James, or I don't know, like it's like a really big name that like we're just chatting. So it's kind of really cool to know her whole circle of people. So I wanted to give her credit where credit is due. So related to like a lot of this stuff, where we talk about, you know, I'm so overwhelmed by my email, or I'm so overwhelmed by all the paper, or there's toys everywhere, or laundry keeps piling up, or whatever it is, whatever we're talking about, really what a lot of it boils down to is clutter. And that's what can make us feel so overwhelmed and stressed, and just like the weight of all of those things, whether they're things like physical things in our house, or, you know, all the things on the computer, or just the constant influx of the mail and the kids' papers and all of that stuff. It really boils down to the clutter. And what I've learned is clutter is really just postponed decisions. And it sounds like a really simple statement, like clutter is postponed decisions. But if you think about it, if you take any of those examples, you could break it down to, yeah, that really is what it is. Like when I'm sitting at my desk and I have, you know, these stacks of paper, and everyone's like, oh, I know what's in all those piles. Like, that's my system. Well, one, I could challenge you maybe on that, but maybe. But throughout the day, what a lot of times we end up doing with those piles when we try to sit down and do work, or you know, get something done in our home, we end up just moving things from one place to another and not really taking any action on them. And at the end of the day, we just end up with like, what was a pile over here is maybe like in a nicer, neater pile over here, and nothing productive really happened with it. Or if you think about it in terms of email, you know, how many times do we open and close our email, or you know, look at it on our phone, but we're not gonna really answer until we're in front of our computer. And then when we get in front of our computer, then we get on Facebook, and then, you know, we just we're doing all sorts of things. And so we're not related to email. There's a big difference between checking email and what we refer to as processing email. That's two totally different things. I think another example of clutter is like our closets. So many times they're full of all sorts of things, and you know, we only have like this part that we actually wear, but in the whole thing is, you know, clothes that we wish we still fit into, or clothes that somebody important to us gave to us, but we don't really like, we don't want to get rid of them, so we're not really sure if it'll hurt their feelings. We spent money on it, too much money on it, we feel guilty that we don't like it. Things that like we go in there and every time we put it on, we end up taking it off and not wearing it. all of those things really boil down to like, we haven't made a decision about what we want to do with those things.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just weighs us down, and it keeps us from doing the things that we want to accomplish in our days. And so the good news about all that is there's only 3 decisions that you really can make about anything, whether that be our paper things, our digital things, or all the the stuff in our homes.
Mm-hmm.
Really, it's just 3 choices. We refer to it as the FAT system, and that stands for file, act, or toss. And so file would be the things that you want to keep. And there's a whole, for papers and digital things, there's a whole system that we can talk about. But just in general, like even for like things in our home, it's the things that we want to keep, that we need, or we love, or we use every day. Those are the things that you kind of put into that file category.
Mm-hmm.
And then for act, that's the things that we need to do something with. So if you use like the closet example, the file would be like the stuff you're going to keep, and then you might be deciding like, how do I want to organize it? Do I want it by color, or do I want it by like, this is the clothes I wear to work, and these are the clothes I work out in, or whatever. And with act, that would be when you are deciding, oh, I actually need to give this to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't want to keep this anymore. And then toss would be deciding what we're going to do with it when it leaves our house. So we're either going to donate it to somebody, or we're going to, some things like nobody even wants, like you should literally just put them in the trash sometimes. But whatever we say, in terms of paper, that would be like throwing away if if it can't be recycled, and shredding it if it has sensitive information on it. So there's really, it sounds overwhelming when we're trying to like declutter our homes, but it really does boil down to those 3 simple choices. Mm-hmm. And then we always say there's no like strict rules. Like if any of you have read like the Cone Marie or watched the show, like she has some very set rules. And I love anything that helps people become more clutter-free and more happy in their lives. So I'm not knocking her style at all in any way. But we kind of say, there isn't actually any particular, it's up to you. It's like how you want to do it. And you can keep anything you want. It's just, are you willing to pay the price for it? And that's in terms of the time that having it costs you, the space that whatever it is takes up, the energy that it drains from you, and the money related to it. So if you're willing to pay the price for all of those things, like if you have a big, huge house and tons of storage and you're happy to have a bunch of things in it, that's fine. That's great. But can you find what you want when you need it? That's also a whole other ball of wax. And that's something that I help people with too. We have something that we refer to as a finding system. Mm-hmm. So instead of a filing system, we refer to it as a finding system. And I use it for everything outside of my files as well. So I know, Melissa, when you and I talked, we went through the whole like filing structure, and then I showed you this program where I actually list like almost everything that's in my house, so that when I'm anywhere and want to know where something is, I can find it, my husband can find it, my 12-year-old can find it. If my 5-year-old could read, he'd be able to find it. So
it was really amazing. And Anne shared a story where she had to have a neighbor go into her house and access something, and it was so simple because she had it clearly explained in this electronic document where this item would be. So she was able to direct her neighbor into her house how to get it. Mind-blowing.
Yeah. And I love the example of one of my coworkers that doesn't cook, and so she keeps her spices like up high in her kitchen, and then would never know what was in there, so she puts it in there. So then she knows when she sees a recipe, I don't have to climb up there and see if I have it. I just go into this little program and, oh, I do have whatever obscure spice. I don't need to buy it.
Or if it's on sale at the grocery store and you're like, oh, I need to get it.
Yes.
Or do I?
Exactly. Yeah. Yes, exactly. So So we talk about three kind of three steps that you could use to get started when you're trying to become more organized, become more productive. And the first one would be to set up kind of a command central in your home. And so when we talk about it in terms of a traditional home office or an office at work, we talk about having the magic six that I told you about, where you have your in, out, and to file box and all that kind of thing. That same principle can be applied to some area in your home. Like if you don't have an office that's like specifically for either running your life or running your business, you can set it up wherever it's most convenient for you. Like it could be right on the kitchen counter, wherever you're going to see it and actually use it. And you think about, this is another area where you kind of think about the person's style. So some people like it in the kitchen because they want to be like right in the middle of everything and want to be able to see the kids or whatever. And then other people, they're like, I am so distracted by the TV and the radio and the kids. Like it needs to be in its own space. And so it needs to be like in the study or in my bedroom, out of the way. Like it needs to be somewhere where I can really focus. Some people need it to be like a really creative space, and so they need like inspirational. Like I kind of like behind me like little inspirational quotes that keep me.
I know your
pictures
office
of
looks
the
great.
kids, yeah. So it's just whatever. Try to set it up in such a way that it works for your style and will make you actually want to like be wherever that is, because that's where all your information lives. And so if you hate being in there, like if you hear people say like I cannot work in my office, like if they're in an office, like I can't work in my office, I have to go to the conference room. Or if they're a small business person, like I cannot work in my office, I have to go to a coffee shop. Like that kind of usually indicates like there's something about your space that's not working. And so we always talk about having a productive environment. Like clearly the environment that you're working in is not productive for you. Like it might be for me, like I might come into your space and be like, well, why can't you work here? This is clean and organized and I love it. And it's because it doesn't fit their style. So you have to really like get to know a person and understand their style to see what would work for them.
This totally applies to kids too. I'm thinking of my daughter's, her desk. She never wants to sit down at her desk and do her homework there, even though that's why we got you a desk.
Right.
Sit down to your homework in your quiet room. But it's not her style. She wants to be like in the mix of things and see what's happening with the family while she's sitting doing her homework.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's funny. I mean, and she'll probably carry that with her for like her life. Like that will just be her style. Like she would be really comfortable in an office. You know how they maybe some places are going away from it now because it's been said that it's not so great for productivity. But
like an open,
space. Yeah, and like everybody was like moving to that, and that actually like sucks the life out of a lot of people because it's just too much noise and distraction and they can't get anything done, and they're like, where can I go to like be by myself?
I know, the conference room. Yeah, that's like my husband's worst nightmare. Yeah.
But that totally works for some people. So that's what's so interesting about it. And like again, like I might walk into a space and be like, this is so messy, like how can anyone live with this? And then like somebody else is like, this is amazing, like this totally works for me. So it's really just all about style.
Yeah.
So I feel like it might be kind of hard to go into like the details of the filing system. Do you think that I should? Like, do you think that will translate well just over?
I think if you explain how your system works for you with your main files and then your tickler system, I think that's really powerful.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, excellent. So,
because everyone has all these papers. It's like, even though this is the electronic age, there's so many papers that come home from school. There's so many papers that my husband will bring home from work, or things we need to print out for permission slips and homework. I mean, I feel like the paper thing is such a problem.
So many papers, yes. Yeah. I totally agree. Yes, so the filing system that we use is, again, we refer to it as a finding system, not a filing system, because we can actually find what we need in there. And one big difference that people struggle with a lot of times at first, and I actually struggled with at first, and I think like I usually can get on board with anything that sounds like it might be more productive, but this was like a struggle, but is for anything that's in like a hanging file folder, or like folders, they don't have to be hanging files, but if you have like any kind of like those folders up there, for example, those were my action folders. Numbering them instead of naming them is something that we do. So the different types of files that we have would be action folders, reference folders, and archive. And a lot of people don't really have archive anymore because it applies for like, maybe if you work in a legal office and you have like all these files that you have to keep as paper and you have to keep them for forever, then you might have an archive place that's like literally in a whole other different room or building even, where like in our own homes, typically we're not keeping stuff that needs to be stored for that long or stored like away from where we might actually want to access it. So most of us would just have action files and reference files, and we would number them. What's that?
I said, yeah.
Oh, no. So we would number them from 1 to whatever. And I always say, if you have more than like 20 to 30 action folders, you kind of need to question yourself, because those are like the things you're currently working on and doing something with. And if you have more than like 20 projects, can you really manage that? Like, are you actually working on those things? So anytime you're like, oh, I'm running out of action folders, you have to be like, wait a minute, what is in these things? Am I doing anything with any of these? Maybe some of these are really like on the back burner and they can be more reference files. And so some examples of things that, like if you have a small business, some of your action folders might be like different client projects, or with your family, like I have an action folder that's like this week stuff for my kids. And I know that that's where those things are. Some people do their action folders, and again, this is another like style thing. They do it more based on date, like this quarter, these things have to happen, and they have them organized in that way. And then same with the reference folders. And sometimes you might have an action folder and a reference folder for the same thing. So like if Melissa, you were my client right now, I would have an action folder definitely related to you and anything that we're currently working on. But if you were my client 2 years ago, I might also still have a reference file from the last time we worked together. And so I might pull that out when we start working again, but I would still keep that reference folder for you, because again, I'm gonna just work with you and send you on your way with all these new skills that you have, and then you'll end up in my reference folders eventually. And then in order to know what's in these numbered files, you're like, well, I can't just number it. like, how am I gonna know what's in there? We keep an index of them, and we keep them in this program that's called Workflowy, and it's WORKFLOWY.com.
And it's an app.
It's an app too.
And it's free.
And it's free, yes, it's amazing. And if you actually want to use it, I can send you a link where you can have unlimited bullets to it for free. There's no charge from me. But it's like the professional version, where if you just go like individually and get one, there's a limit, and it's huge, it's high. But like if you went like crazy, you're like trying to organize your whole life in there, you can only put like 150 bullets in a month or something like that. But so if anybody wants it, just get a hold of Melissa. We'll send you the link, and you can have 1,000 million bullets every month. But what you do is you set it up and you put, like action 1, action 2, action 3, and then you list in there whatever's in there. And so like for my reference folders, for example, I have one for my car, one for my husband's car. And if I was doing a traditional way in my little hanging folders, on the little tab, I would say like car or automobile or Subaru or something. But then if I was going to look for it, I might be looking for, when I'm like just scanning with my eyes, I might be looking for auto, and I didn't call it that, and I can't find it. And if I organized it like alphabetically, then I'm like looking in the wrong spot because I called it the wrong thing. So in Workflowy, you literally like type in anything that you think you or anyone that might access these files might think to call it. So like if it's something related to my kids, I would put like their names, like Reese, Cole, kids, children, like anything that I might think in my head when I'm going to look for it. And then that's how we can find the stuff when we need it. And then additionally,
let me just clarify that, because it took me a while to figure out what this was. So Anne has physical files of things like everything pertaining to the automobile. in an actual file, and the file's numbered. So then on this electronic document, which is kept in Workflowy, it has the corresponding number and what's in it. So she can search in Workflowy to find out which file has all the automobile documents in it. And then that'll lead her to the physical location. So I didn't understand one was physical, one was electronic when you first explained this to me.
Oh,
but
good.
then I got it. So I want to make sure people get that.
Yeah, and when you set it up, you probably want to be at a computer because it's just faster and easier to do like that much typing. But then going forward, like there's no reason that if you're not like at your, if you're in your home, like you're not necessarily at your computer all the time, but it's literally an app on your phone, and it's like Google for all your stuff. So like I use it for all of my files. And then I was telling Melissa, like I literally use it for like most of the rest of my house. So like I have a section that has like all the stuff that's in my freezer so that I don't buy when I'm at the store. I can check like, do we have this whatever that's on sale? Do I have room for it based on what I know is in my freezer according to Workflowy? The base, I have 2 large-ish storage rooms in my basement, and there's a lot of stuff in there. My husband has a business, I have a business, we have the kids, like there's just stuff. It's all super organized, but like you couldn't possibly write on the labels of the bins all the stuff that's in there. Like it'd be like, an 8x10 sheet. But in Workflowy, I can literally say like on the first shelf on the right, in the first bin, blah, blah, blah. And it literally doesn't take that long to do. Like that sounds like crazy and overwhelming, but literally if you just go in and do like, okay, today I'm gonna document all the stuff that's in that room on this first shelf, and then the next day I'm gonna do the second shelf. Like 1 week later, you might have the whole thing done, or you might like get on a roll where you're in there like, oh, this is so great, I'm gonna know where everything is.
That always happens. If you just do a little, then you end up doing like an hour and a half worth. Yeah,
how you get going, it's like working out, same thing. Like once you get there, you're good. But like so many times we can't find what we need when we want it, and so we end up doing things like buying stuff that we already own, just losing it forever. Like just how many times have you like you have a gift card, where did you put it?
Yeah,
you're like going to that restaurant, like if you put it in Workflow, you would know where it was. So I have a list of all my gift cards, I have a list of everything that's in the garage, and it's just like, so it's super helpful for me, but like so helpful with my husband and I when I'm like, could you get the whatever? And he's like, I don't know where anything is. I'm like, well, just go into Workflow and search and you'll see right where it is. It's on the 3rd shelf in the hallway closet. And then he goes and gets it.
That doing this activity helped you declutter? Did you reassess anything that you came across? Did you decide to
Yes, it definitely like opens your eyes. You're like, why do I have all this? Like instead of taking it in here, perhaps I should give it away in my Buy Nothing group. So yes, definitely, totally helps.
That's a good
but
benefit.
Again, like it doesn't have to. Like some people get upset about organizing because they're like, they're gonna make me get rid of everything, and I don't want to get rid of my books. I love my books, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter. But wouldn't it be great to know all the books you have? So when someone's like, I want to read whatever, you can be like, oh, I think I have that. Here it is. So yeah. So I love it. Can you tell that I love Workflowy?
Yes, I love that you love it.
Yeah, okay, and then just one other thing related to files is I also use something, a tickler filing system, which I don't know if anyone's familiar with that, but that's where things are organized by the day of the month that they happen or the month that they're going to occur in. And these are like smaller things. Like an action folder would be like more like ongoing project-based things, or like just bigger activities. Like if you're planning a trip to Disney, like you might be gathering all this stuff, and that would go in an action folder. But then you might put like a reminder, like a piece of paper that says work on the Disney trip, and you might slide that into tomorrow's tickler file, and then you pull that out and you're like, oh yeah, today I wanted to work on my Disney trip. And on this note, it might say it's in action folder or whatever, or you would go to Workflow and see like it's in number 10. And one of the benefits of going, I didn't say this before, changing it to a number system is so that you don't, as the contents of these folders change, you're never like relabeling folders ever again. And you're never like, if you try to keep them organized by alphabet or by topic, like I used to have in my reference folders, which they didn't used to be called reference folders, but now that I call them that, they were my reference folders. I'd have like all my bills together in an area, and all my like insurance stuff and my tax stuff. And then anytime a new one came in, like I'd have to move the tabs because they weren't in the right spot, and reorganize everything and relabel. And it was like, like to have to create a new folder was madness. And now, like, it just goes in the next number folder, and I don't have to like have a system for what order I keep them in, because Workflow tells me where it is.
That's helpful for me because I use those folding accordion files that might have like 12 pockets or 20 pockets or whatnot. And yeah, you can't be like shifting them all to remain alphabetized when you have a new entry.
Right. Yeah. And then like you have to, erase or whatever the label, like you would just number those too. It would be the same thing. And then whatever was in there, that's what's in there. I don't know if you could see it, but I was going to show you my little tickler system. So I use a specific one, but these are.
Hold it up so we can see.
We can see. So these are the numbers. So tomorrow's the 27th. So I've already moved the 26th to the back because I already did what today's stuff was. But so in the 27th folder is anything that I wanted to do tomorrow. And like when a new piece of paper comes in, like if I know something needs to be turned in next Monday, I would go, I'd look at my calendar and say, okay, Monday is March 2nd. So I would take that paper and I'd put it in number 2. And I don't forget about it, because part of my morning routine is I pull this folder, like today's folder is the first thing I look at every morning, so I don't forget about important things. And some people put things in here that they want to use to like create a habit. So like if you want to start, I would never do this. This is a bad example, but if you want to like wash your windows every Wednesday or something, wash your car. Okay. Maybe that's realistic. I haven't washed my windows in the 3 years I've lived in this house, so that's a horrible example. But if you want to wash your car every Wednesday, you might just write on a piece of paper, wash the car, and then that would be in Wednesday. And then when Wednesday comes up, you just move it to the next Wednesday. And then eventually, like doing that on Wednesday is just second nature for you, and so you don't have that paper anymore, but you might have a new habit you're trying to create. So there's the 1 through 31, and you do shift them each day so that the tomorrow's or today or tomorrow's dates in the front. And then you have January through December. And some people move them. I like to keep them just in order. And they're in the back behind all the date ones. And so like right now it's February. I don't have anything in February because in January I would have pulled out the February one and put it into, like that was all the stuff that I said, okay, it's January, I'm not doing this, but I know I'm going to need it. Like I had tickets to something around Valentine's Day in January, but I couldn't put it in the numbered part because
it wasn't
that was a January month. It wouldn't make no sense when I pulled it out on the 14th, because I'd be like, this is January, what do I need this for? So that's in February. So then towards the like the last week of the month, you pull out the next month and start distributing those things into the dates that they go in. So it's for like a lot of the like day-to-day stuff is what's in here. And some people have a version of this, it's like the accordion, like you're talking about, where it literally has these exact same folders. It has a 1 through 31 in the front, and but you can't move the dates. Is the only reason I like this better, is I like to have the date in the front. But if I didn't care about that, and then I kind of like that I can just grab one of these and take it with me as opposed to the whole thing. So like if I'm traveling for business for 2 days, I might just grab the 2 days that I'm gone and have it with me versus taking the whole thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there's that. So like I said, I could talk about this for days. So we're probably getting close to our time limit.
Tell us about multitasking. You had a comment on multitasking.
Oh yes. Do you want to talk about that yet? Yes. So multitasking. The bottom line is, don't do it, because it doesn't exist. You can't do it. You think you're doing it, but no one is actually doing it, because humans, our brains, the way they work is we literally can only do one thing at a time. Like a good example is if you're trying to answer emails, and then you're on the phone. Like some people say like, oh, I get all my emails done when I'm returning client calls. Well, what actually happens is you make typos in your email. The email takes 8,000 times longer to write. And while you're doing it, if you get sucked into your email while you're with the client's getting annoyed with you because you're not paying attention and you're like stumbling and stuttering, because we can only do one thing. And instead of multitasking, what we're actually doing is something called switch tasking. And so we're just moving from like one thing to the other. And if we're doing it a lot, we're like boom, 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 like back, forth. And the more that we do it, the more inefficient we become. There's statistics that say like at a minimum, we're 40% less effective when we try to multitask. And, you know, if we're doing, if you're trying to do like 4 things at once, it just multiplies. Like you're really, really inefficient. And there's an activity that we talked about potentially doing, but there's this activity where it's really simple, but anybody, like people always are like, oh my gosh, I could not like survive. I couldn't get anything done if I don't multitask. Have you seen my world? Like you're crazy that you think that somebody can get through life without multitasking. And then they do this activity, and the first one is like a simulation of multitasking, and then the second one is monotasking, where you do those 2 activities from the first one, you do them just in order in the second one, or vice versa. And always, like nobody that I've ever done it with has not had double the amount of time when they're doing the multitasking version than when they're not. Even the people that are like, I am the queen of multitasking, and just nobody is. We think we are. We're not. Like we're doing one thing poorly every time. There's a quote, I can't remember what it is, but it's something like multitasking is just doing more than one thing poorly at once, or something like that.
What do you think about the things that don't take a lot of energy, like when you're like putting on your makeup or brushing your teeth and you're listening to a podcast, things like that? What do you think about?
Yeah, I mean, I do that all the time. I shower and listen to, like, yes, anytime I'm doing something mindless like that. But truthfully, what the facts are, I literally, this is embarrassing, but I take my phone into the shower sometimes and like have it showing a show that I want to catch up on. I take a way longer shower when I'm watching the show than I do when I'm not, because I like get sucked in and I'm like, it just took me 8 minutes to shave my legs, and that's not normal. So, I don't know, like I do it.
Mom life.
Yeah. I do, like, I listen to podcasts when I'm doing my hair or whatever. But I do think that I get ready faster when I'm not listening to those things. But I do think it's a great use of time. Like when I'm folding laundry, yeah, I love to listen to a podcast during that time. Or like last night, I was folding laundry and I was playing a Hide the Sock Monkey, this board game with my kids. And they like totally felt like I was engaged in playing, and I was, but I also like was folding laundry when they're looking for the sock monkey. Like, I mean, that's like real life. Like, I'm not talking about not being real, but they're literally like when we're trying to accomplish real things that require brain function, our brains cannot do 2 things at once. Like that's just a fact. So, you know, even when, you know, when I'm doing that, like, not that the laundry is going to take my attention away from my kids, but like if I was trying to listen to a podcast in one ear while I'm like trying to pretend that I'm engaged with my children, like that doesn't work. It just doesn't. It would be nice if you could accomplish both of those things at once, but one of them's not getting your attention. You either didn't hear the podcast, that you're not going to get like the learning out of it that you wanted to. You might catch one thing here and there, or you're totally neglecting your kids. So we just really can only do one thing.
My husband and I have a rule, like no cell phones when we're doing bedtime with the kids. No cell phones in the room. So easy, like just bring our cell phone in. It's going to take 30 minutes. So maybe just check your phone, but no cell phones in the bedroom, because you really are scrolling while the kids are there, like wanting to read or whatever.
It's like their like favorite time with you, and we're on our phones. Yeah, that stuff is so hard. And I do not judge anyone that does it. Whoever's listening, that's like, that's what I do when I.
No judgment, right? No judgment.
We all have to do what we have to do to survive. But yeah, the like couple of key things that I really wanted to drive home was the multitasking thing. So thank you for bringing that up, because that was one of like my big things. Like, we should all stop multitasking, because it stresses us out too. Like, it makes us feel so overwhelmed. Even if somehow you are able to do more than one thing at once,
Mhm.
you're like you're like 10% of the world if you can do that. But it still is way more stressful. Like if you were just able to do one and then the other, it feels more calm, and
Yeah.
everybody wants to feel that way. And then just being more productive isn't about getting more things done. It's really about doing the right things and being really intentional about how we choose to spend our precious time. We all have so little time in the world, really.
Mhm.
Who knows when. So like try to be really intentional with the time that we choose. Anything that we're like doing outside of our really special time with our family and our friends, the rest of that time is super limited. And so don't spend it doing all the trivial things so that you can check them off your list. Like those things account for like maybe 20% of things that are important to you. Like do the things that fill in like that 80% of like these top 3 things. If I did things on those every day, that would get me 80% further than if I just checked off 100 things that were like nagging me on my to-do list. Like David
Mm.
Allen says, literally, like if you did the brain dump that he recommends, and you wrote down like everything that you wanted to do in life, like that's a really useful exercise, and it helps us clear our brain, because our brains really can't hold that stuff. Like our brains are meant to do
Mhm.
and not hold information. So that's a really good exercise to do. But then once we do it, just be comfortable that they're there, and know that literally if we crossed 80% of those things off, like life would go, like you'd be happy, like life would go on, like
Mhm.
nothing bad would happen if you never did any of those things. So it's really important to try to identify and prioritize what are the things that are most important to me. How do I want to spend my time?
This is the book that we're reading this month, The One Thing. It's about
Yeah.
doing less to have
Yes.
more. Yeah, last year we read Essentialism, which was such a similar principle.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have Essentialism from last year. I didn't read it yet. It's bad. It's on my
You
nightstand right
basically
now.
know it if you just gave gave us that talk. You know it. Tell us about, I just have a couple of questions before we close. Tell us what you
Yeah.
would do with a client where the spouse was on a totally different wavelength. How do you get them working together in the home? Is one of them going to take the reins with the organization and the other one's going to um, just have to get with the program, or are you going to have 2 different systems going? How does that work?
I do not recommend 2 different systems. That typically never works. But if we can all get on board, typically, like if one is more resistant or just completely resistant, sometimes it's just a matter of like getting down to like why. Like why is the one wanting more structure, more organization? Because once the resistant spouse really understands the why, as opposed to like just being like, she just keeps nagging me to like put my things away, and like for me, my husband is definitely a more messy human than I am. And when he finally understood that, like it really like drags down my energy. Like when there's stuff on the island, I just I can't even. There can be stuff in other places, but there's like certain spots that when I walk in, if I see that, like he knows that if I've been gone and he's like in charge of the kids, if I come home to like that type of mess,
Mhm.
it's immediately going to put me in a bad mood. And like, why does he want me in a bad mood? Let's just clear the island off. Like, kids, mom's coming, clear the island. If we like can understand why the spouse cares, the one that does care about it, like
Mhm.
why they care. We love it. In couples, like we love each other. We want to do things that make the other person happy. So even if they're like resistant to it, if they can see why it's important to the other person, a lot of times they do get on board and they're
Mhm.
happy, and they end up being happier. Like everyone's happier when like backpacks and shoes aren't laying all around the front door, and they don't realize that that bothers some people more than others. But like once
Mhm.
it's put away, they're like, oh, this is so much nicer that like everything has a home and the kids know where it goes, and like everybody just, that's the routine, and you just like put it where it goes when you come in, as opposed to just dropping everything when you walk
Mhm.
in. But so
Okay, and
many
how
times
about,
like, that stuff happens because nothing has a home. No one said where it goes.
yeah, everything has a place and everything in its place.
Mm-hmm.
That's what
Exactly.
my mom used to say. And I know she didn't make that up. All right, what about kids, especially small kids with all the toys and
Mhm.
their stuff? You know, they're so into their things. They don't want to often get rid of anything. How do you enroll your kids in participating?
Make it a game, make it fun. So, and then I'm a big labeler, like an obnoxious labeler. People mock my labels, but um, for the kid stuff, like Cole, he still can't even read, so his stuff is marked with pictures. It says the word in the word so that he can like start to identify letters and stuff, but it has a picture. So like this bin has the Legos and this bin has the cars and this bin has the guys. And then like clean up every day. What we do is about an hour before the youngest bedtime, we have a dance party to whatever the current favorite song is, which right now is Regulators by Warren G.
They're so cool. Oh, I'm still suffering through
Jump
Old Town
around.
Road over here. My God.
But a good one that everyone loves is Jump Around. Gets everybody jumping from like Mrs. Doubtfire. Jump Around. I know I'm like super old compared to like people. Never even heard of that movie. But that's what we try to do with the kids. And then everybody, we know these things. It's just a matter of like they need consistency. So even my kids that I like harp on them about, you can have one thing out, and then when you're done with that, put that away. You can play with all the things every day if you want, but in one out, one in, and we have to put it back. And of course, like that does not always happen. We might have 3 things out, but we don't have 500 out.
Yeah.
And we do own probably 500 different types of toys, and some are in the basement, some are in their rooms, some are on the first floor. They all have like the space where they live. And you can take them anywhere you want to play with them, but when you're done with them, they go back to where they live, and we all know where that is. So it's just a matter of like modeling and follow through. Like if we only enforce it, all parents know this, like if we only enforce it once a month, they're not going to do it.
Right.
But if we do it, if we just part of what we do every day, like we do it right now, we're currently doing that kind of thing like at bedtime and then just consistently throughout the day. But like we used to do it, like one of the parents would stay and like clean the kitchen after dinner, and then that's kind of like the cleanup time for everybody else. And then after that, we would like play something that's like not insanely messy, like a board game or whatever, hide and seek, go outside, whatever. Like don't mess it all up after you just cleaned it up.
Yeah.
And like in the summer, it's a lot harder because they're home so much more, so they're messier. But it's the same thing, just consistency and making it easy. Like it cannot be hard. It has to be simple.
That is such a good, also fair feeling if one parent is in the kitchen cleaning up and the other one is cleaning up.
Yeah, like everybody has to do something.
Yeah. Isn't it the worst when one's in the kitchen, the other everyone's on the couch chilling, watching TV?
Yeah, watching TV. Yeah,
cannot happen. That's a surefire way to build resentment.
Yes.
Oh,
exactly.
That's so helpful. All right, tell us how to connect with you, Anne. So I know there's going to be follow-up questions. I'm sure there's things that we want to elaborate on, like the email thing. Women will want to get a hold of you. How can they reach out to you?
Well, my website is operationproductivity.com. And there's like a contact me form on there, or there's several places where you can click to actually like book time on my calendar. I always offer a free 30-minute discovery call with anyone. I'm super happy to answer emails, even if somebody has no intention of working with me or anything. Like I'm happy. I just want to help anybody any way that I can. So reach out and tell me if there's anything that like you were really wanting to hear about and you didn't, like definitely let me know, because I do these type of talks in different places, and I want to talk about the things that resonate with the people that are stuck listening to me. So I want it
in our group,
so
she's a participant in the trophy, so she can easily answer questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just looking in the group actually before our call, and something I didn't mean to, but I ended up clicking on something that made all of my posts show up in the group. It is so embarrassing because I didn't know I did this, but literally all the posts that I have in there are like pictures of drawers I organized, Cole folding in the Con Marie staff. Like it's all super like that's apparently the only thing I choose to comment on in your group is something related to organizing. So
I love that. That's what we know. Oh, that's so great. And on Operation Productivity, everyone, Anne has a little quiz that I did that helped me identify my, let's say, areas of improvement so that we knew what to focus on when we got on the phone. So that's a great way to start if you want to reach out to Anne. Thank you, definitely. Anne.
You're welcome. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you over in the trophies, ladies. Bye.